And if you think I'm done, I still have two more guests to exhaust this Queen analogy. Justin Sayfie, the former spokesman, top advisor to Jeb Bush, the former Florida governor. David Carlucci joining us right now, the former New York State senator, Democrat. David, let me talk to you first as someone, who maybe can give us a view of what the president's thinking, crowing about these markets, not crowing too much, but clearly trying to say, this is a sign that America is coming back. The underlying economy is good. The markets are pouncing on that. You should be happy about that. You think that's working?
Well, it's always easier to blame than to boast. And we see Donald Trump doing that extremely well, pointing out the problems, talking about all the things that could be bad in our economy and not focusing on anything good. When you boast about what you've done, people tend not to believe that. That's why negative advertising, those campaigns are so popular. So I think Biden's going to be very careful here. We've learned the lesson with touting Bidenomics. I think he's got to say, hey, look, this is something that transcends. It's one of the economic indicators that people really tie to and can relate to with the Dow. We know it only tells so much. The real problems are the divide that's growing in our country, that the economy might be growing, but people are being left behind. And you see that with certain demographics. It shows in polling. And I think that's why he's got to really talk about his empathy for communities across this country and how he's going to help them more than Donald Trump will.
Yeah, you can't risk, telling the American people they're imagining what they're going through here. Justin Sayfie, you have a unique perch on all of this. The former advisor to Jeb Bush, his dad, of course, George H.W. Bush, was running for re-election in 1992, arguing the economy, though it appeared to be in a recession, was actually coming out of it. It was at that time. Too little, too late to help him. And of course, Bill Clinton came into office. But again, he too was saying the seeds of a recovery are here. And it really fell on deaf ears. Now, the Biden folks like to think that the markets, the economy, all that we're seeing right now, people have had time to digest that. There's more time for them at the White House to make that argument. What do you think of that?
I think it's a tough argument for them to make whilst people's 401ks and the stock market's going higher, which is they've got to talk about that because that's the only piece of good economic information. The inflation rate is still too high. More Americans are falling behind on their auto loans and on their credit card debt, according to recent data. So there's a lot of people in terms of what they're feeling. They're not feeling the economy getting better. The stock market might be getting better, but that's more of a future indicator of where the economy is going to be 6 months or 12 months from now. What people are feeling and experiencing right now is high inflation and high interest rates for home loans.
Justin, this is a little apart from what maybe is going on, and we can overanalyze the markets and what they're doing and why they're doing it. But is it a leap, do you think, for Donald Trump to say they're doing it because of me? They're doing it because I'm going to come in, and they're optimistic about what I'll bring when I do come into the White House?
I think that's a reasonable argument for Donald Trump to make. I mean, I think, look, when you look at the polls, even from the New York Times and other news organizations, they all show Donald Trump winning in both the swing states and nationally. So I think if anyone would say that Donald Trump's more likely to be president right now than not, and I think that that's built in right now to what the market's doing. Absolutely.
Okay. David,
well, I think that's like
what do you think, David?
Cake and eating it too. I think it's like having your cake and eating it too. It's saying, hey, we're going to pick and choose what economic indicators we want to take credit for, which ones we don't. So it's either you take it all or you take nothing. And the fact that you're going to try to boast that it's because of what might happen come January of next year, I think that's outrageous. When you can point to the fact that President Biden has had these successes, whether it's the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS Act, helping put more money in Americans' pockets by capping the cost of prescription drugs. The list goes on and on. But again, I think you have to be very careful in the political sphere when we try to give too much credit to ourselves. And I think Biden has a lot to talk about in terms of his accomplishments,
right.
But he's got to be careful because it's very quick and easy to just point out a few problems to attack. And it's always easier to believe those negatives than those positives. And that's why Biden has to be out there listening to people and really understanding that there's this growing divide and many people are being left behind. And he's going to be the president that makes sure that they get that boost into the future economy that we're seeing here in the United States and around the world.
Yeah, it's a difficult needle to thread, but he's trying. So we'll watch what happens. Justin, David, thank you both very much. This is what we're keeping the focus on, regardless of who gets the credit or whether anyone should get the credit. Either the guy's running for president. A lot of people say it's the Federal Reserve. It orchestrates a safe landing. It's interest rates that have stabilized a little bit in the market. And, of course, those corporate earnings coming in, by and large, much better than expected.